Well, if you think skateboarding at the Olympics is cool, wait until you hear what was approved just last month as a sport for the 2024 Paris Games. Breakdancing, or just breaking. The art form, born on the streets of the Bronx in the 1970s, is now big business and, yes, a competitive Olympic sport. NBC's Steve Patterson has our Sunday Spotlight.
You know, because I got put on to some committees early on when that was specifically like a lot of like 90s heads that were seeing themselves as kind of like the middle ground between like the OGs and like the newer ones, and like, all right, let's and everybody on there was like, yeah, none of us know anything about what's going on, and everybody's like, we don't know. And then later on you saw emails get leaked out that like, oh wait, your name's been on this email that was 4 months ago, that was 6 months ago, that, you know, and it's people that you respect, that you look up to, that you know, and you're like, oh bro, like for real, it's like that, like, you know. So should breakers? Absolutely. I mean, the community should.
Yeah, because we think of it this way: we live in a democracy,
and if the community as a whole, and that's hard to say, like, what is? Because then you go, what is the community? Who are the breakers? You know, is it the new kids only? Is it the older cats? I mean, I think it should be a combination of everybody. You know, if you're going to put together the ultimate committee to decide these things, it should be across the generations.
We somewhat a democracy. Sometimes our voices are not heard.
Well, it's impossible to take away that voice. They definitely have a voice. I would believe we're having this interview right now because they have a voice, you know, and the internet gives people even bigger platform to have a voice.
When we hear people talking, everybody's talking right now, and everybody's an expert on everything. Everybody's a coach now.
Okay, everyone, let's get the blood pumping. Let's loosen up the joints. Let's generate some heat. Come on, you. There you go. Now, the scenes that you saw from the movie Breakin, you may not get to be that good, but you'll come close. I promise you. And you'll have fun and a great workout. Very good. But before we go on, I have a little test for you. We'll start off by patting the head. Now rub the tummy. Not too bad so far. Lift the leg up. Now twist the leg. Come on, twist that leg. Now jump around in this manner. Now jump back the other way. If you can do that, you can pop and wave and break dance without any trouble.
Everybody's like, well, you haven't taught nobody, and all of a sudden now you a coach? Okay. Is to understand where those people are coming from. Where are they, what position are they in their lives? Because that's dictating a lot of how people are making these choices.
But at the same time, you know, B-boys have also delegated, without maybe not realizing it, they've delegated leaders in the culture, you know, who are more part of the brain of the body of b-boying, you know, to a level to where, you know, they ultimately make the decision for the rest of us.
And it's all speculation, and it's really easy from the outside, because we're on the outside still, to assume what's happening. And we know really well just from like throwing in at events that people can look at your event from the outside and be like, well, Illskillz is getting rich off this NBL thing. He must be a millionaire by now, and this must be mad fun to him. And he, you know, and then you're like, man, and you know, you're making choices that, you know, and I know for a fact that there was things that when we were in the NBL that we were like, man, what the heck is it? But I'm sure there was a rhyme and reason why you did it. Doesn't mean we didn't feel some kind of way about it at the time, but there was a rhyme and reason why we did it. So
more or less, we are all born and raised, at least in this country, with the mindset that like our voice matters and our perspective matters. So when referring to something that is birthed out of this country, out of the like struggle areas of this country by Black and like brown individuals, it's like you can't mute those voices.
You know, when you go to a battle, you know, and you pay your money and you go to that competition, you know, you're making that person who made that battle a representative for your culture, because when, you know, financial sponsorships to come by, or when history comes by and people want to know what happened, they're going to go to the person who made that battle. They're going to go to the person who did that to find out the information, you know? And so you've in effect voted for them to be a delegate for all the people, you know what I'm saying, at that point.
So I think, yeah, we should, the breakers should, but they haven't. And not even our OGs, not even, there was a lot of people that are just, you know, whoever got their way in, and a lot of people kept quiet and pretended that they didn't know anything was going on.
At the end of the day, it's like, yo, like this is us. Like without all of us, this is nothing. Like it would have died in the 80s as popular culture perceived it to have died.
The people that they went and negotiated this stuff with are people who have been in those positions as far as battles and competing, and they've made this decision based on their perspective that they see in the b-boy culture from what they know. So
you hope that the people, but when people are being sneaky about it, that's when you're like, I can't really trust, you know, because you won't be upfront. Just be upfront. Yeah, man, I got a seat at this table. I'm gonna make some shit happen. What do we want to talk about? What do we want to bring to the table?
It milked it for all it was worth at the time and then dumped it off. And I think that's the fear right now, is that that popular culture is going to swoop in again and then milk us dry and then just leave us on the curb, like a curb in front of the hospital, like, oh, you got it. Like, yeah, y'all good now. But it's like, it's a different time now. It's a different time. There's more money involved. There's a marketability that's shown within it. Like, but, you know.
Yes, absolutely. The breakers should have a say-so in what's going on. You know, but it's, you know, it's that we get thirsty, you know, I say hunger over thirst, because when we get thirsty, people start acting a little desperate. You know what I mean? When people are thirsty, it's desperation, and that's different than being hungry. And people are, I think, mixing that up. Like, well, I'm hungry for this next level. I'm hungry to elevate this. I'm not, like, no, you're thirsty for yourself right now, bro. Like, you know, and I get it. It happens. We, you know, at some point, we're all growing. We've all been there or are going to be there. So, yeah, they should. But that's the tough part is getting, you know, some people that are wholeheartedly into it, and that we can, you know, be transparent about things.
You know, of course, you know, the body can continue to say, you know, there's going to be disagreements here and there, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's going to get that vote. Everybody's going to get that choice. But at the end of the day, some people have an electoral vote and some people have a popular vote, you know.
But again, it's so difficult because everybody's in a different place. Everybody has a different experience.
So I think that the Olympics would have a lot to gain from having b-boys there with their declines, definitely. But I also think that b-boys would have some things to gain as well. Like,
so say like you had Olympic ballroom, or you had Olympic like you know those like studio dances that like have outright gigantic competitions and such. Like, if they're on that level and they're being marketed as a sport, then it's gonna happen.
I guess it depends on who you ask, right? Because if you ask some sports guys, they're gonna say, hell, of course, but it should be. If I stand to make some money off of this thing as a sport, then I'm gonna say, yeah, of course, it should be marketed as a sport.
We all acknowledge our form is a dance, not a sport. We have very athletic individuals within it. We are all ourselves in one way or another somewhat athletic, and it can be perceived as a sport, but it's a dance.
You know, I think the breakers are, you know, the most athletic people on the planet of the earth. I'm a b-boy, but I'm still amazed by things. I'm like, what in the world? There's nobody else physically doing what these guys are doing. You know, I mean, there's nobody else spinning on one hand vertically for 60, 100 spins. Like ballet dancers can't do that on their feet.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, anything, you know, I think that some people get the wrong idea about it. You know, sports is physically intensive. You know what I mean? And breaking is, you know, it's physically intensive, you know?
It's a dance, it's an art form, it's a culture. So for marketing purposes, it will be deemed a sport just strictly from the representation of like, okay, countries, teams, crews, so on and so forth. This.
You know what I mean? Or if there's game plans to like, cool, we're gonna market it as a sport to get our way in here, but then the plan is that we're going to put this stuff, plant this back in. If there's some kind of plan, I just don't see those kind of plans going. I think people are just going like, no, this is where it's at. If we go into sports, then we're gonna get all of this funding. We're gonna get all of this sponsorship. We're gonna get, everybody's gonna be rich or something. And it's like, that's not really the way it works. It's still 1 in a million people that are athletes or that are anything. So,
But at its core, like, they'll say sport, and we're just gonna look at it like it's dance. It's a dance.
And like I said, I'm gonna go back and use the history, because I think that, some of the more hardcore foundational heads are worried about losing that aspect. Not necessarily the foundation aspect, but like what we were talking about in the last question, as far as hip hop roots, and will that be taught? If it does have this massive explosion in the Olympics, instead of it becoming part of Olympics culture, right?
I can only say for myself, it would be doing a disservice to the power that hip hop has, to the power that breaking has. It would be doing a disservice if we only marketed it as a sport.
It's like how every single like news article from like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or everything else is talking about it, and they keep calling it breakdancing. And then breakdancing with the worst stock photo that they can plausibly find. Like, you can type in breaking, find a better stock photo than half of the photos that they utilize for their actual click, because that also goes back to they didn't really care. But
there has to be an intention, man. There has to be intention behind all of it. Same thing with I don't know what we're going to get into, but we talked about the same thing with the language that we use for this. It's still a risky, slippery slope to try to think, we're going to only market it this way, and then we're going to come back and reach for it. We might lose it at that point. And people are like, no, nothing's going to get lost. I'm like, what are you guys looking at? Look at anything else in the world that's been modeled, and we've lost everything. Specifically Black people. Look at jazz. Look at all. We're repeating this. We have an opportunity right now to make things better, to make things different. So,
between the 70s and the 80s, when Rocksteady and them, introduced the foundation. Footwork, freezes, top rock, and made the term b-boy. Everybody who calls himself a b-boy that wants to be a b-boy. And there's other aspects to it as far as, being there at the time and performing and stuff like that. But people are calling themselves b-boy because they have the foundation, right? They've mastered the foundation or can use the foundation in a battle, with, to a degree. You know what I mean? The foundation in itself was made in order to make breaking a dance, to distinguish it as a dance, because street culture in general had many dances that people would just combine. People were just getting down. The foundation before b-boying was top rocks and down rocks. You know what I mean? Was just dancing while standing up and dancing while on the ground. You know what I mean? And then flips and all that stuff too. And really that's just dancing in general.
There's a lot of potential in everything that's going on right now. I sat down with ASU has a department that's like a global sports department, right? And I sat down with them and I was like, look, there's an opportunity for us to do things right that sports didn't get right. A lot of things that sports hasn't got right, or the things that has gotten twisted in sports.
In the end, I think I would prefer it be referenced as a dance as well, because within American culture, it's supposed to be a dance. Like it is a dance. For us that are living it, it is a dance. It's not a sport. For those that are competing on the level where it's like up there and it's like the career b-boys and such, even them won't really call it a sport. They're still gonna call it a dance. But for all intents and purposes, within how they're trying to frame this within the Olympics, they have to kind of name it a sport, because then it's going to bring up the question of like, okay, is this going to open the door for other dances to come and be a part, or is it just like this is the one dance that's allowed within it, or is it just a sport and we're calling it a sport? Either way, none of us are going to call it a sport. It's dance. It's always going to be a dance, man.
If there's a game plan of like why we're going to market it as a sport, but knowing that our intention is always that we're going to bring back the culture and the spirit of things, cool. Then if that's a game plan, but I just don't see that as a game plan. So just marketing as sports so we can just benefit from it somehow, I don't think that's the trade-off is there for us. And again, it erases. It goes back. It erases all those kids that started this thing.
They made it so that b-boys can have a dance, can have a set culture. Marketing as a sport, allowing it to grow like that, is really only doing what they've already done. And that's to continue to push b-boy culture into having its own, unique spot and being more professional. You know what I'm saying? So in itself, that's b-boying as a culture growing, and becoming closer, to being more full grown.
I think it's dangerous to just market it as just a sport. It's dangerous and it's disrespectful, man. You're gonna have intentionally or unintentionally some kind of agenda behind what their choice is on it.
The United States leads the Olympics in medal awards and is just about supreme in the sprint races, thanks to men like Tommy Smith and John Carlos. Yesterday, they came in first and third in the 200-meter dash, and then stood on the victory platform with bowed heads, wearing black socks and gloves in a racial protest. Before the Olympics, there was a furor in this country over a threatened boycott by Negro athletes. Then most of them decided that participation in the Olympic would further the cause of civil rights in this country and abroad. The Negro athletes wear buttons reading Olympic Project for Human Rights. There were some boos in the stadium last night.
For more quality content from Beyond the Cypher with Illskillz, don't forget to press the like and subscribe buttons. Let us know how we're doing down in the comment section, and to make sure that you don't miss anything from the channel, smash that notification bell. We appreciate the love and support. Peace until the next episode.